If you think our future will require better schools, you're wrong. The future of education calls for entirely new learning environments. If you think we will need better teachers, you're wrong. Tomorrow's learners will need guides who take on fundamentally different roles. Knowledge Works Foundation and Institute for the Future, 2020 forecast, Creating the Future of Learning. Jan Stewart was attending an introductory networking dinner with some colleagues, a cohort of principals who had joined a professional network of school leaders that had agreed to work in targeted district schools to increase student achievement. They were enjoying this time to get to know each other and learn about their individual school cultures and challenges. Jan had been the principal of Eastville Middle School for several years and smiled as she listened to the spirited talk. The conversation began with broad ideas about new theories and ways of addressing individual needs and learning diversity through approaches like differentiated instruction, universal design for learning, curriculum mapping, and the like. The principals talked about needing new ways to deliver instruction and debated online learning, smaller classes, looping, and modifying use of time. Typically, conversations drifted toward district policies that the principals were unhappy with. But tonight was different. Jan's friend, Brian Thomas, the new principal at Marshall Junior High, began sharing a story about an individual student he was concerned about. Darren, a bright 8th grader, was generally a strong student, although he'd had some recent difficulties. In particular, he'd received poor grades on writing assignments, especially on essays and research papers. His state writing test had just come back, and he had barely scored a 2 within the 1 through 4 ranking, putting him at below grade level. Darren did well on multiple choice tests, and his handwriting was fine, but his papers, reports, and essays were returned to him with the same messages: highly disorganized, needs more elaboration, and incomplete. The continued negative feedback on writing assignments frustrated Darren, and he felt humiliated about it. "I don't get it," he had said when Brian asked what was going on. "I rewrote that essay twice and it still came back with marks all over it." His teachers thought highly of Darren, noted that he participated in class discussions and was well liked by his peers, but they had exhausted their ideas for strategies to help him. Darren's language arts teacher said she'd taught him the 6+1 trait writing process and showed him the state writing test rubrics that described the difference between a score of a 2 and the acceptable 3. His social studies teacher had introduced a writer's workshop as part of her class. These hadn't produced a change in Darren's writing. His teacher shrugged and said Darren might be going through a rebellious period and not putting effort into his assignments, or he was just lazy. One teacher firmly believed that Darren had learning disabilities that should be addressed in a resource room and not her classroom, pushing to send Darren through the referral process. Brian worried that he likely had dozens of Darrens in his new school and wondered how he would be able to help the teachers reach those students while also trying to inspire them to transform education for all the students that attended and would attend Marshall in the future. Darren was a particular risk, but Brian asked, "Won't we let down all of our students if we keep doing business the same old way?" This chapter will explore a model of education centered around learners and learning, the rationale for embracing the science of learning, the role of learning leader versus school leader, use of a small wins strategy to support change in school practices. What's today's school leader to do? Anticipating the future while attending to the here and now is the work of all school leaders who are devoted to educating all learners. At its core, education is a future-oriented enterprise charged with preparing the next generation of workers, citizens, and leaders.